Good evening, everyone. I will now call the January meeting of the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Task Force to order. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is our third meeting, first in 2025. Happy New Year to everyone, as we are gathered here in City Council chambers tonight to make sure that we have space for the community to participate in this process of making our city safer for everyone. I will now ask Ms. Matthews to call the roll.
Jalen Drury.
Here.
Sheree Patia.
Here.
Keith Rice.
Present.
Leticia Sessoms.
Present.
Roger Smith.
Present.
Eugene Swinson.
Present.
Sherman Taylor. Tyler.
Tyler.
Thank you. Sarah Ray.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will mention that Mr. James Cullen did indicate that he would not be present tonight, but he has shared two names of two members of our community that will be joining the Community Engagement Committee. During our committee updates portion of our agenda, I will be sure to share the names of those individuals, as I believe they are present here tonight as well. All right. Can I get a motion to approve adopt the agenda tonight? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We've adopted the agenda. We'll now move to the next item on the agenda of old business, and I'll pass it to Ms. Matthews to discuss a previous item of the email addresses for commission members.
Yes, so everyone should have received an email from me on Friday with their new email addresses. If you haven't received that email, please feel free to come speak with me after the meeting. Moving forward, all business will be done using that email, and you will not receive any emails to your personal emails regarding the task force. And as far as meeting location, our meetings have now been moved to this space. So moving forward, we will meet here in the chamber. The only time we will not be in the chamber is in September, because that meeting falls on a holiday. So we'll have to figure out how we want to manage that first meeting in September.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Are there any
Thank you.
questions? Yes.
Yes. Regarding the locations, is there any way that we could probably at least take one meeting or a couple and actually be in the communities at a rec center? Is there any way that, I guess, the city could set it up so that we could be, at a rec center at some of the communities? So that way, for those who really can't get here or have transportation to get here, we can come to them.
Yeah. I believe that's a great idea. I was at an event on Saturday, and some folks asked if there was possibility that we could move these meetings to different locations throughout the year. I've noticed that other cities and municipalities have done that in other areas. And so I think that's something that we can consider. And so if the Community Engagement Committee could identify some rec centers that we would like to go to, and we can move forward with letting the community know where we'll be at each month, whether we're going to be here in City Hall or be in a rec center. But Mr. Rice, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once we know those dates, I can get everything coordinated for us.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, moving to the next item on the agenda is Portsmouth United updates, and that is also Ms. Matthews as well.
Yes. So there's a lot of things happening with Portsmouth United, but the main update today is that we will be meeting weekly. So every Thursday at 6 p.m., we will be at 206 High Street. And there will be Portsmouth United updates about what's happening in the community and what our community-based organizations are doing. And then also there'll be time for information sharing and collaboration. So that is weekly, beginning this Thursday, January 9th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Excuse me, can you tell me that address again?
Yes, it will be at 206 High Street in Classroom 1. But when you get there, there'll be someone to direct you to the proper location.
Thank you. And can you send that out in the email to the members of the task force as well, just to make sure everyone has that information?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is continued discussion on FOIA that we had in the last meeting. We asked for a training to be done or open dialogue about FOIA as there was some concerns by members of the task force as well. So we're going to ask for that presentation to be done right now.
Good evening, Commissioners. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me about FOIA. It's a very confusing area. I passed out, my name is Burl Stromberg, I'm Assistant City Attorney. I passed out a sheet, 2 pages, with a summary of FOIA, and you all can keep that and refer to it at any time. FOIA stands for the Freedom of Information Act. It's a state law that we come under and we have to abide. Matter of fact, all board meetings must be open and all records must be available for review. So minutes are taken here. The public can view those. We're open to the public. We have to be open to the public under FOIA. A meeting is defined as 3 or more people. It's really strict when you think about it. So if 3 of you guys are in an elevator talking, that's technically a FOIA meeting. If you're talking about business of the commission, you can, of course, talk about other things. But if 3 or more of the commissioners are together in either electronically or in person, and you start talking about business of this commission, it's considered a meeting, a FOIA meeting. And yeah, will anyone find out? Maybe, maybe not. But we really ought to abide by that. Two people can talk about the business of the commission, 2 of you commissioners, but 3 or more, it's considered a meeting, and it's considered an illegal meeting because notice hasn't been given or anything of that nature. So try to stay away from that. Like I say, if you see each other socially, whatever, try not to discuss the matters that come before this commission if there are 3 or more of you together. And there's some examples on that sheet I won't go through that are what would be considered a FOIA meeting. Now, if you discuss something else having nothing to do with this commission, it's not a FOIA meeting. You don't have to worry about it. And there's some examples of what a non-meeting would look like also on the first page of this sheet I've passed out. To comply with FOIA, the meeting has to be open to the public. Generally, it has to be in person. There's a very complicated way you can hold meetings electronically, but it's very, very limited. It's very, very difficult to do, usually in an emergency situation. So generally, it has to be in person, and then notice has to go out 3 days beforehand of the meeting, and then minutes. The meeting has to be memorialized with minutes, which the meetings have been and done very well. We appreciate that in the city attorney's office. Thank you. There is possibility for closed meetings. We don't need to get into that. This commission probably won't be necessary to have any closed meetings, and so I'm going to skip over that. You have it on your outline if you want to read that. All public records are open to the public, and it's any writing, recordings, where city business or commission business is transacted. Any documents, anything that's generated, the public can see. Even on your own personal iPhones, your computers and so forth. So now that you have emails, city emails, all business should be conducted. Any computer business or electronic business should be conducted using those emails. Okay, so if we get a FOIA request for all communications between all members of this commission, we can just go to those. We don't have to go to your personal iPhones and so forth. But they are subject to FOIA. And, we have somebody in the office that goes through just tons of emails or texts and so forth and decides what has to be turned over and what doesn't have to be turned over. So keep this out of your personal business. Keep your personal business out of the email that you have, and that's a real easy way to sort of categorize and keep any emails and business together if it's FOIA'd by somebody. And almost anybody in the state can FOIA us, which means they can request these emails that were going to each other and out or wherever else. All records must be maintained, and we do a pretty good job of that through our city clerk and our office. And a violation it can be costly. I think it can be up to a $1,000 fine. So take this seriously. No discussion of business if it's 3 or more commissioners together. And like I say, any writings and so forth are FOIAble, even if they're on your personal devices. Any questions? Okay, good. Thank you. I'll be around. Oh, sorry.
Quick question. So is there any guidance specifically on, let's say there's folks reaching out to the members of the task force to engage with us, whether it's agencies or community members, is there any guidance on reporting that back to the rest of the commission? Should we report that back? I'm sure we should, but what does that look like in terms of FOIA?
No, I think you can report it back.
Okay.
And sometimes it comes up at the end of the meeting, somebody
Okay.
talked to me. That's okay because it's an outsider
Okay.
talking to say one or two of you or whatever. It's just when 3 or more of you guys are together, you can't discuss business.
Okay.
Or if you do, it's technically a FOIA meeting.
All right. Sounds good. Any other questions?
I have another one. The same guidelines would be in place for our committee meetings, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so minutes need to be taken for those and then adopted for each. And
Yes.
does that happen, this is probably a Robert's Rules thing, does that happen at the committee level, the minutes being put in place, or does that come back here?
I think probably the committee level would be best, and then submit them to the full commission, I think. But that's really up to you guys, I think.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, discussion about public comments. One of the key topics that we discussed a little bit at the previous meeting in December and in the meeting in November was determining format for public comments during task force meetings. So I'd like to open the floor here at the dais for a discussion around this matter and what that should look like. I'm under the thought process that we should allow the public to engage with us, but we should decide on a format for what's best for this commission to make sure it's impactful and productive as well. And so I'm going to open the floor now to have this discussion. Any thoughts?
I don't know if we all agree, but I know that city council probably has a sign-up method. I don't know that that's something that we should necessarily require, unless you all think so. I think that if people just attend and they have a question or a comment, never mind, I take that back. I've been to city council meetings several times. I've thought about it. So there would have to be some type of restriction, number one, on time of the comment, and number two, on number of commenters. So that's, now that I'm thinking about it, the purpose of the sign up. So perhaps we can just kind of mirror that and then leave a small space at the end for people who didn't have an opportunity to sign up for a scheduled amount of time. Maybe like we have 10 minutes for 2-minute comments or something like that.
Ms. Essems?
I am definitely in agreement of allowing the public to speak. I think it's critical for us to hear from the public. And I also definitely think that we should adopt some type of structure and format with one already being in place. I am not personally in the business of reinventing a wheel that is already working and functioning properly. So I think we should highly consider adopting the same format that is implemented by City Council.
I myself, I agree on the same way the city council do it. That makes sense. You don't want to start switching up and changing stuff, doing something new. If it works, it works. So I think that's smart.
I kind of think we should actually look at the actual procedure that they use and pick out things that we want to use. We may not want to use everything the same way that they do. But basically, yes, use their same procedure.
I have a question. So are we taking what are we getting from the comments? Are we taking suggestions from them? Are we taking criticism from them? What are we getting from it?
Well, I think as we see in city council meetings or school board meetings that, we can say we're taking a specific thing, but folks, the community is going to come up and say whatever they would like,
Right.
as they should. So we can make recommendations as to what we're looking for, and I think that's what we want. We want to engage with the community, but what that looks like, I agree with those who've said that we should adopt what the city council is doing, and we will have to decide on if we should adopt the entire structure on what they use as well. Because we want to make sure that we're able to engage with folks who aren't able to show up to the meetings. And so what that looks like will be decided on using the community engagement committee and going out into the community. But for folks who can't show up, what does it look like for them to write in or submit anything online or digitally for us to still be able to review it outside of this space, even if it's on our own time? Maybe that's something that we can consider. But I do agree that we should adopt what the city council has. Ms. Patilla?
Yes, I think that's important. It would be obviously easier for us to adopt what they have, but just remembering, like the chair mentioned, just remembering the dynamic of people who we're trying to reach. This is a crime board, it's not city council. And there may be people who are affected by the very things that we're talking about that aren't able to submit a request to talk or, like you said, be present at the meeting. So I think that we should take that into strong consideration because we do want to hear what they have to say. We do want to know if there are things that we're not addressing that the people experiencing it can share with us. So I don't know what the city council structure exactly is, so let's visit that and then, like you said, pull the pieces that we need from it.
Yes, sir.
So my one question would just be, is there an age restriction on
Yeah, I was about to ask
on
that.
those who can speak? I think, considering this is gun and crime violence prevention, hearing from the youth, minors, juveniles, I'm not sure what restrictions, we would need or guidelines in place to hear from those that are in those communities and, who are living through what we're up here speaking about or trying to help out, but, they're going through it every day, and so if we could hear from them, without, necessarily having to give out their names or even have them necessarily be on camera, but if we can really get some transparency on what's going on through their tongues, I think it'd be really wise. So I'm not sure what the restrictions are on the age, who can speak and who can't speak, but if we can look into that, I think it'd be wise.
I got one more question. Remember we was talking about representation for some of these neighborhoods? So I guess when y'all set these, the committees up, are we taking questions directly from them and are we bringing them back, or are you inviting that person to come speak themselves?
I definitely think we can do both, so we don't miss any opportunities.
Right.
Getting them to come to wherever
come
we
down.
are, and also those that are unable to come, if we can, take their information and bring it back to the board.
All right.
Because all of the, we want to hear from all the citizens.
Right.
If I may, it sounds like the community engagement team might be able to work on developing that and having some youth voices, et cetera. I think the agenda item that we're talking about now is the public comments though. So I don't know whether or not there's an age limit for public comment at city council meetings, but I think what I'm hearing from the rest of you is that if there is a youth, a juvenile who would like to come to make public comment, that's something that we would be interested in. If I may not have gotten that right, but I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about representation as far as at the community engagement group side, but also whether or not a minor can come here and speak with the understanding that it's a public meeting and an open forum. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, the youth and the young folks, you know, they're going through the same things that we're speaking about. And so, you know, not that adults aren't going through it also, but there could be things going on in the school, there could be things going on in the community. And, you know, for us to get it really from the inside of what's going on would be beneficial for all of us.
I 100% agree. So I guess if we're going to mirror if we're going to take parts from the city council policy about it, then we should just be mindful that we include or remove any language that says that adults only can speak. Is that?
But be mindful, also want to be mindful also too that, you know, we're up here talking about crime and violence. So for any of these kids or anybody to get up here and speak about what they see or what's going on or what they're hindering, you know, I want to be very mindful that, you know, for us, we get to, you know, probably go back home or go somewhere where they may not have to go. So, you know, where the cameras are on, I think it's great, but let's be mindful and respect their well-being also. I mean, it's good to hear what they have going on, but I want to be cautious of how it's presented by far.
Understood. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up, because I 100% agree with that, and I think that's to the point I was making before about like making sure that this meeting and this space is accessible to everyone. And when I say, you know, everyone might not be able to be here or feel comfortable to come into a space like this, I'm specifically referencing the youth. And so figuring out what that looks like for the youth to participate in this process of making our city better, I think we have to really take some time to figure out what that looks like. Creating the space for public comment, I think, is important as well, but if they don't feel comfortable with coming in here, what does that look like as well? I think that's where I'm getting at.
So
Yes, sir. I have a statement. And also, I think we should be very careful on how we dealing with kids that's under 18. And I think we will need their parents, if they will come under 18, their parents should be with them. I think that's allowing a child that's 14, 15 to come in and speak without a parent. I think that's going to be an issue. It might with the parent, you just don't know, you know. So I think anything under 18, I think a parent should be made aware of it or be here.
Mr. Rice.
And I guess, you know, just kind of looking at the format and then, you know, as we're talking about the youth, could we probably, I guess, might be wise to break it down as to those who want to speak from a business owner standpoint, you know, or parents, you know, or just citizens, but then also youth. Maybe we can break it up into some type of format, you know, a certain number of, you know, business owners or, you know, youth and things of that sort.
Could we create a survey for the kids?
I think that's a great idea. I believe we discussed creating space on the commission's page on the city's website for possible, I don't want to say applicants, but folks who are interested in joining committees. We had that discussion back at a previous meeting, but I don't think it's a bad idea to create a survey for responses from folks for the youth, but just for people who don't want to or feel comfortable with coming into this space as well. I think that would be helpful as
Well,
well.
you could kind of cover some of their topics without necessarily having to engage directly with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
My recommendation would be for the Community Engagement Committee to take the next couple of weeks before our next meeting in February to go back on this discussion and possibly draft some language on what we talked about tonight, on the recommendation that we could put out on the city's website and publicly on the reason why we're trying to engage the community, who we're trying to engage, and what that looks like with them either coming here or submitting a response via a survey. I think we probably need to have a further discussion about what should be on a survey, as I'm sure the manager would recommend us to come up with those questions as well. And so I'll recommend for the Community Engagement Committee to work on that as well. Is there anything else that we should add to that I'm missing? I'm sorry.
I had to sort of get myself back on, look at the bylaws to remind myself of what the, maybe the bumpers were for me, where the guardrails were. And I noted that in the bylaws, underneath the different breakouts for the committees, there's also it says the chair may appoint additional ad hoc committees as necessary to address specific issues or tasks. So I wonder if that would also be a conversation where we could have a youth forum where that could be a committee. And that might be a way to get the information to us so that it's just something that we could consider. Because I think the public speaking side is one thing that we need to address. And what those rules would look like, but I hear everybody's concerns and I get it, but it's possible that we could create, you as the chair could create another committee, and that might be something that the team thinks is appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Any comments on that or feedback? All right, thank you. Any other comments on this agenda item?
One.
Yes.
When are we looking to start, public comments and hearing from the public? What's our target, deadline? Could it be next meeting? Are we able to hear a couple individuals tonight, if possible? What's our deadline?
Do you all have any recommendations, Ms. Matthews?
I would suggest, just based on keeping all things kind of like straight line, we would want to have a policy in place before we started taking public comments. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you. And Ms. Matthews, if you could send over, if there's any language about, I think we all are aware, but any specific language about the format that City Council uses for public comment, I think that would be great for us to look at between now and the next meeting. And then we also have already made recommendations for the Community Engagement Committee to work on between now and the next meeting. So that way, in the February meeting, we could possibly have public comments if we have a policy drafted and that we can adopt in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our next agenda item, committee updates. As we discussed during our December meeting, many of us were waiting to receive access to our city email addresses before we begin committee work. Now that we have access, I believe it is a fair expectation for committee work to move full speed ahead. I will say, although I did not have my city address, I was thinking about folks to be on committees and listening to folks in the community on thinking about ways that I can engage folks already. I'm not sure if there are any updates, but if so, I would like to go ahead and go through them, starting with the Data and Metrics Committee.
I do not have any updates, do we have any updates on the RFP?
No.
Yeah. Sorry, I would ask the city manager if he has an update on the RFP. I just glanced his way, but that's who I was talking to. I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'm sorry. I'm a little more formal than than a glance. But yes, we did put out an RFP for assistance for this group. Unfortunately, we only had one respondent, and we wanted to have a little bit more competition than that. Reached out to a couple of different agencies to see what the issue was about responding. Got some feedback from them. We're going to reissue that RFP, see can we get some more competition in that. So we don't have one that we will suggest to you yet, but we will bring that back up again. And when we actually get the respondents back, I'd like to put a group of you guys together as part of the team that's going to evaluate who who we actually engage with. Okay?
Thank you, I appreciate that update.
You're welcome.
I will continue to work with the police department to gather data as we need it so that we'll have it until we have an official organization to work with as part of the RFP. I'll do the work that I can do until then to just keep up to date with what is going on and what is occurring in the city until that point. So that is my only update for now.
Thank you. And still on the topic of data and metrics, Vice Chair Patillo, there were some folks who reached out to me after the last meeting from educational partners in the area, from Norfolk State to ODU, who indicated that they would like to support in any way possible, whether it's through research or those metrics. And so I think the Data and Metrics Committee would be the ideal group to possibly either meet with those folks or before meeting with those folks to email back and forth to see what they can provide in terms of support with this committee specifically on data and metrics. So I'll make sure I'll forward that information to you in the next couple of days. All right. Intervention Committee.
That would be me. As you stated, I have been waiting on my email to make it formal. However, I have been recruiting heavily, so I am ready to go now that we're back from the holiday. So.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sessoms. All right, the Resource Allocation Committee, I am the chair of that one. I don't have any updates other than I've been doing a lot of research to see what other cities have been doing. Cities like Baltimore, who have done what I think is an amazing job at reducing crime in the last year or so. I've been looking at cities like Chicago as well to see what they're doing and seeing what we can possibly mirror here in the city of Portsmouth with working with the city manager and working with city council as well. And so that's really where my updates are. I expect between now and the next meeting, I will have something more concrete and possible recommendations as I continue to build out my committee, and I'll bring that to the group in February as well. The next committee is Community Engagement with Mr. Cullen and Mr. Hugel.
Yeah, evening, Chair and Task Force. So as you mentioned, Commander Cullen is out of town, unable to be here tonight. He did invite a couple of his committee members who are here this evening, James Johnson and Lee Deere. So he's recruited them. They'll be working with Commander Cullen on community engagement. Additionally, after our December meeting, I was contacted by a couple of important community stakeholders, and I've invited them here tonight. The first is President Shane Nicely. Mr. Nicely is president of Bon Secours Maryview, our healthcare kind of center of excellence here in Portsmouth. So I appreciate you making the trip out here in sketchy weather, Mr. Nicely. And then Elisa Winston, who is executive director of PRHA, and I don't see Ms. Winston here tonight, but in any case, she's reached out and has expressed interest in engaging with the task force on behalf of housing. So as other folks reach out, I'll look to connect them with you to make them available as subject matter experts to support the committee work that you all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just note as well that Councilman Hugel and also Councilman Tillage are our city council liaisons. So if this is your first time joining us in this space, you'll see them here. And also, if you have any, for whatever reason you can't reach us, please reach out to them as they are our liaisons on this commission to help us and guide us along the way as well. So thank you again, Councilman. All right. Are there any questions about committee updates or any other comments? Yes.
I have a comment. It's about the meeting from last time. I know in the agenda minutes, it says, the gap between, it says something like PRHA. I was just looking at
I don't have that. I don't have
Yeah, discussion gaps. Let me see it. Gap in engagement with PRHA communities. It's not, it's HUD communities.
HUD communities, okay.
It's HUD, it's not PRHA. PRHA is kind of pretty helpful as far as the work that I do, and I'm pretty sure everybody else that goes into them communities, they kind of, with open arms, the HUD properties that we have, problems, all of them.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. And members of the task force, I'll just remind you all that before we approve the minutes off the top, if there are any issues in there or updates that we need to make or any recommendations to change in the minutes, I would recommend you all to make that off the top of the meeting before we adopt the minutes. But I do appreciate that clarification. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is the recap of action items. I want to make sure that Ms. Matthews, if you have a list of the items that we discussed tonight, if you could go through them for us.
Yes. So I have 3 action items. 2 of them are for the Community Engagement Committee. The first one is to identify recreation centers and community spaces that we can host our meetings in. The other is to discuss the public comment policy for the task force and then bring a recommendation to the group for our February meeting. And the third action item is for me to send out the City Council's public comments policy to the group.
Thank you. Was there any other action items, commissioners, that we're missing? All right. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda for the next meeting and the agreement on the agenda items. Are there any recommendations for the next agenda for February?
I have a quick question. Where were we, do we know where we were on progress for the portal for community members to sign up for committees, or are we still manually building committees? Oh, sorry. Repeat. I was asking if the committee or the city manager, if you knew where we are on the portal for community engagement in the committees, the sign-up portal or the portion of the website for that, if you're able to provide another update.
Yes, ma'am. The Marketing Communication Group is a group that's in charge of our website. They know that that is a priority for us right now. They're building that out. We're actually looking to rebuild our whole website, so you'll be included in part of that process. As you determine the content that you want on the website, that's going to be important to us. Going to need some way to engage with you to determine exactly what you want on the website and how you want it presented. We can pretty much do it, but we don't want to create the content with the assumption that we're doing what you want. We're really going to need some engagement from you guys to determine what it is you want and how you want it presented to the public. So if you give that some thought, as or even a small group of you that may want to represent the body as a committee that will help build and design that, that will really help speed that along. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. City
All
Manager.
right. You're welcome.
I suggest that, I don't want to put every single thing that has to, the committee, the task force has to do with the community. So I don't want to put every single thing that has to do with the community on the community engagement committee. But I think if each committee, I suggest each committee to come up, I think we discussed this before, with what it is you would like for recruitment for your committee. And then we can build that into one sort of questionnaire. And then, as the city manager suggested, maybe if a small portion of us come together to talk about what we want the look of our presence on the website to be, what is important to be included. So I think that's two separate things, how we're recruiting people, the form that we're using electronically, and then what our presence online would look like in working with the marketing and media team. I'm sorry, I hope you all could hear me.
Thank you. Ms. Essems?
I would like to say that I think it would be a good idea for us to get together, whether it be a Zoom or in person, before the end of the month, and for us to review the protocol for the public speaking so that we can have it prepared for our next meeting and not come here at our next meeting, reviewing the information and then having to vote and pushing it along. We only meet once a month, so it's like a long time away.
Yeah.
So if we can all agree, Ms. Matthews, if you can get that information out to us as soon as possible, and then we can, now that we all have our proper emails, we can communicate and make a decision of when we can meet or how it's done virtually or in person. Yeah.
So I wanted to just remind us, remind the task force that we just got guidance that meetings probably should be in person, based on the FOIA guidelines, guidance that we just received. So I'd be happy to coordinate a 6 p.m. Monday meeting if Monday at 6 p.m. works, for us to all get together. I can take notes, just to look at the policy. And we could do that any Monday between now and February 3rd. I just need to know a date, and then I can coordinate it. We can have it at 2:06. It'd be easy to coordinate.
Yes, sir.
So, the website that's being created, could we use links from other departments in the city as far as like resources? Even going back to the survey, putting the survey up there? Just like like not just crime stuff, but stuff that helps bring the crime down. Maybe some of those resources should be on that website too. So you'll get feedback, and you'll also get people to go up there and maybe find a resource that they need that might not come from the commission, might come from economic development, might come from the police department. But I think the website should represent all of that and not just crime stats or our meetings. It should be outside links up there for different organizations to help out some of the people that need it.
Agreed. Ms. Patillo?
I was just gonna say that I think that that would be why the meeting amongst us will be necessary, to talk about what should and should not be on the site, because it's not just a representation of us as like, oh, look at our pictures, we're the committee, this is the committee that's doing the work. It should be a resource for the community, so I think that's a great idea to have links for them, and then talk about what should be there, because crime stats are already available, so does it need to be repeated? Those are the types of things we talk about. What image are we portraying? What does it look like? What needs to be there for the public? What needs to be there for us? So I think all of those things should be included.
Yeah, so I just want to get back to the question that Ms. Essems had on if we are in agreement to have a meeting before our next commission meeting, and if so, when will that take place? Based on availability of everyone that is present.
Well, if we're gonna stick with a Monday like Ms. Matthews suggested, I would just like to point out that the 20th is a city holiday, so that would either leave next Monday or the 27th. And whether or not the group feels like the 27th is enough time to get things drafted for the meeting, or is next Monday enough time for us to review the city council things to make a recommendation?
I would recommend further into the month, so it gives us a little bit of time to review the materials that Ms. Matthews is going to send us. And if there's any other ideas and concepts of what should be included on the page, it gives the group enough time to research that and send it out to our secretary. And so maybe I should put a motion on the floor to pick a date, if everyone's ready for that. All right. All in favor for, I'm having my calendar wrong here, hold on. What's the 2 dates that you said?
Either the 13th, which is next Monday, or the 27th, which is the last Monday of the month.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with the 13th. All in favor for the 13th? Okay. All in favor for January 27th?
Aye.
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 All right, so that meeting would take place, and I guess we can call that a work session if that is okay. Work session would take place for the commission on Monday, January 27th at 6 p.m. And I would like for that meeting to take place over inside of the conference room so we can, yes.
I think you picked another location.
Ms. Essems.
I thought she had picked another location.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I'm sorry, I was saying, I thought you had picked another location for that meeting, 301?
206.
206.
If you wanted to. I just
High
offered
Street.
our space, that's all.
So that's what 206.
Yes.
206.
So I would
206.
suggest, thank you, Ms. Essems.
welcome.
I would suggest we use a space that I have a little more, that's a little more available, and we know
Okay.
for sure it's gonna be at least something available at 206.
All right.
And I can give y'all the specifics tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. All right, getting back to the original agenda item of picking agenda items for the next meeting. Are there any recommendations for what should be included on that agenda? Anything that we should move from this meeting, anything that wasn't discussed today? Any recommendations? Yes, ma'am.
I do have one. As I was, again, looking at the bylaws, I saw that under the accountability and reporting, we do have some responsibilities to report both to city council or the public. And the city council reporting outlines some things, so I think we need to take a look at that and maybe set some dates so that we know what the expectations are and we can be prepared to move forward with those.
Is there any recommendation from our council liaisons on when that should take place?
When you have something to report.
Okay. I know there was a discussion in, I believe, the first meeting back in November, that we should, or some of the members should appear at the January council meeting. Was that something that should still take place, or would information about that be sent out to us?
Ask the question again, please.
In our first meeting, there was a discussion with the city clerk of possibility of letting the city know who we are and the purpose of the commission. I wanted to follow up to see if that was still taking place or if there was any information about what council meeting that would take place at.
So Councilman Tillage and I are your liaisons. We have provided a liaison report for the task force at the last council meeting in December based on the discussion that happened at the December meeting. It's our intention to continue to do liaison reporting at city council meetings on your behalf. It's why we're here to capture the discussion, the actions, and the plan to move ahead and announce upcoming meetings, including any important agenda topics that you all plan to address at the next meeting. So we'll have a council meeting next Tuesday night, and one or the other of us will provide a liaison report to the council, but also to the public to update them on the outcome of tonight's meeting and what you intend to do in February.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, you all gave the tasking a little while ago in your action items to the Community Engagement Committee to draft a set of speaker rules, right?
Yes, I
And
believe-
so
yes.
hopefully what you meet to talk about on the last Monday night of January is the set of speaker rules that the Community Engagement Committee provides to you, it's important that you push it out because the committee chair is out of town through next Monday night. And so he's going to need some time with his committee to get the city council speaker rules, pull those together, and address the comments that you all provided tonight in order to provide you a draft set of speaker rules for you to review, discuss, and eventually approve at the meeting that you've just decided to hold.
Thank you. I think that's a fair point that was just made by Councilman Hugel. As I mentioned earlier, I do expect for work to push on by the task force in the next couple of weeks, especially being that we received our emails last Friday from Ms. Matthews. And so I have an expectation that we will begin doing the work outside of this space. Another thing I will mention is that we don't have a work session or anything like that other than the one we just scheduled. And so unlike other groups who may have time set up to do this work, it's going to be up to us to decide when that work will be done. And so that's why those committees are important. And I think, as I said off earlier on, that that work is going to begin. So I don't think we have anything to worry about with that.
Yeah, just a reminder from our discussion at the first meeting regarding bylaws, we put those committees in place with the hope that that's where the work happens, and those committees then bring that work back to the task force as a whole for you all to give them the thumbs up that they're on the right track, give them the thumbs down and some corrective guidance. But we really want that work to occur at the committee level. So it's important, as we've talked about, get the staffing of those committees moving. Don't overcomplicate it. Get your committees staffed up and get started. And then you'll have something to talk about, and we'll be happy to share that with City Council and the public at council meetings.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thought I saw someone's hand for agenda items, maybe.
Yep, so we will have a representative from Portsmouth at work
Okay.
at our next meeting.
If there aren't any other items that commissioners would like to add now, as indicated in the email sent by Ms. Matthews earlier today, the agenda will be sent out, I believe you said, at least 5 days ahead of time. And so between now and then, if there's anything that you come up with between now and then that you would like to be added to the agenda, please send it to the group via email and let Ms. Matthews know as well, so that way we can add it to the agenda in proper time for the next meeting. Yes, sir.
On the next agenda, and if the other one's going forward, could we add a little slot in there to kind of give praise to the things that are definitely positive within the city? There's a lot that goes on that, here's a platform, and we can always shed light on those things, no matter what it is, whether it's kids going to, visiting colleges, or whether it's a football team winning championships, no matter what it is. I mean, the more we can give praise and shed light on the positive things, I think it's a good thing. So if we can make a spot on the agenda, not a long time, but just to give some mention to those that's out there.
Absolutely. Mr. Rice, would you like to give those updates in the meetings?
I can.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Anything else at this time?
And I'm glad that he said that, because I remember I asked at the last meeting for upcoming events to be included in the agenda. I didn't email it, but we talked about it in our meeting. So I think that's another thing that definitely should be added to this as well.
Yeah. Councilman Tillage.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and Task Force. I want you all to be very mindful that when you're creating your agenda, you're thinking it from a lens of what is effective and what is not effective. And so when we're trying to create our agenda, we know what programs we have. We know what programs we don't have. But the task that you all are being given is the task to see how well those programs are working or how inefficiently they're working. Portsmouth has a lot of different programs that the city offers, a lot of programs that community partners offer, but what is the effectiveness of those programs? And so a lot of that's going to also involve data research. It's going to involve reports and a lot of reading to see what is that looking like and the accountability aspect of it. Moving forward in our meetings, we want to make sure that we're not just here to talk about the presentations given by different departments on what they're doing. Those presentations are given all the time. We find those on YouTube. We find those on social media. But let's really dig deeper into what those programs are doing, the impact that they're having, the impact that they're not having. Because if they're not having impact, well, guess what? We need to go back to the drawing board and recreate the wheel so that we can be effective. And so when you're trying to create your agenda, think about that thing. Don't be scared about asking for the details and the numbers of the reports, because all these programs that the city conducts, the programs that the city helps to fund, the city should have that information. If you don't have that information, well, there might be a program that we don't need to be working with. And so we need to make sure that we're staying vigilant to those things so that we can create task force deliverables. So please keep that in mind when creating your agenda.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. Is there anything else, Commissioners? All right. Yes, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to kind of give you a couple of things as Councilman Tillage put out there. There is already a tremendous amount of work that is already going on, and part of the task for you all is one, to figure out and get educated on about what we already are doing, and again, look at some of the gaps and how we fulfill certain things. So on the 22nd, I'll be having my first quarterly Chiefs Forum for 2025. I do hope that most of you will be in attendance to hear about some of the things that have occurred through that time period. But in addition to that, I also want to give you some things that I think that will help you educate yourselves on some of the initiatives. So the City of Portsmouth's crime reduction plan is on the website and available for you to review. Also, the 2019 Portsmouth Poverty Study, a good document for you to review. The Bloomberg study that was released, that was also a good study for you to view. In addition to that, most recently, the Portsmouth Health Department released its study in December of 2024 on a lot of the issues that we're facing. So again, as you look at crime, understand crime is multifaceted. And so a lot of the things that we are hoping to get from this commission is, we know what we're doing. We want to look at what is effective and what's not effective. One of the things I will also ask you to review is President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. And that task force was created not only for crime prevention, but also with the focus on building trust and legitimacy within the community. And so, again, you will be part of the measuring stick of the programs that we have, not just from the city's perspective, but also from the police department's perspective. Are we being effective in some of the things that we are doing, and do we need to tweak them? Do we need to cut some things out? Just looking at, again, what other areas are having success with. It may or may not work in our city, but we want to at least have the information and the ability to be able to try it. There are a number of universities that we're already working with, Norfolk State through Safer Together's, that is what it is, Safer Together. Safer Together. They are a part of that in doing some of the metrics. Also, Virginia Commonwealth University, in addition, and we've partnered with ODU previously. So we want to make sure that we don't reinvent the wheel, but make sure that we do have those individuals who are willing to assist, because there's a lot of data that we're able to provide them. We want to make sure that we're getting good information out from this so that we can make sure that we have all of that. And that's all that I have. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Chief
Chief.
Jenkins, may I ask a question? I'm sorry. The reports and things that you mentioned, I'm going to ask Ms. Matthews to send out.
Yes.
But then in addition to that, the metrics and things that, the projects that VCU or NSU, et cetera, are working on, are those things that there are regular reports on?
Yeah, so many of those reports are done, and again, they will provide us a finalized product based on information as to how effective the grantees were with doing their work, what type of successes that they had. There's a lot that's going to be put into that. The front-facing stats that we put out on a weekly basis, we put them out every Monday on our website so that you'll have some basic information just on districts. But again, part of the task for you all is for you to tell me exactly what information that you're looking for. Do we want to break it down based on demographics, age, areas? And so the more information that you can provide me, we can begin to create those reports so that you can really take a deep dive and analyze and then try to find some solutions into those things. Not just that, but addition to, we know where the problems are, but what areas, what resources do we already have that are in that area? And are those resources effective in there? Do we need to put some additional resources there? Is there some other things that we can look at? So yes, ma'am, we'll make sure that we get as much of that to you. But again, I need from you all when you have an opportunity. All right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, as we mentioned, our next meeting will take place on Monday, January 27th. That will be a work session. Those details will be provided by Ms. Matthews on that location to the rest of the commission, but also to the public as well. Then our next official meeting will take place, our February meeting will take place on February 3rd at 6 p.m. here inside of City Hall as well. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.